Video games. It's been a long, repetitive cycle, not only in development, but throughout the generations. And as this current generation draws to a triumphant finale, we head into that auspicious event that is the book-ending E3. But as things change, the more they stay the same. However, this time, things may be slightly different. To stay relevant with this fast-paced gaming landscape, I decided to return to my previous news consolidated affair to give you info in a faster fashion. And so E3 is right around the corner, but not quite as we know it. But what can you expect? And is this really the end? Well, let's find out, or at least let's talk about it. The big hitter this year is obviously Microsoft. They have the show to themselves and a captive audience on its Sunday event, rumoured to be 2 hours long. It will focus on its expanded internal studios that have been beavering away across platform delights over the past year or so and many years to come. This will include new hardware that we will get to see soon, but software is still the most important part and will be key in any success from any brand. UK-based Ninja Theory will be attending with its new multiplayer melee fighter Bleeding Edge. The design and themes leave me cold from the leaked trailer, and this is an obvious target on the Fortnite crowd. But so long as the combat and mechanics work though, I can ignore the aesthetics, which coming from the DMC action director Randy Tucker, my expectations are high. I am confident we will have a huge, fast montage of games from indie and other studios alike, which I personally hate, as it just adds to the lost in the crowd marketplace that is most gaming platforms now. E3 should be more about focus, with certain games that offer a spectrum of the market, rather than a fast-cut collage of titles you have forgotten within 1 minute from view. The games that will get focused though will likely be Gears 5, Horizon's DLC, and of course the new Halo Infinite, which is my bet for a big cross-gen launch, which I think the name implies. 343 Studios will use the new power to demonstrate their own new sandbox engine that will span the hardware and for the first time launch on PC day one. Mac players will completely miss out this time. Now, the demo we saw gave us a glimpse into the aims of the new title and the aspirations of the technology in teams: wide open landscapes, air and sea battles, animal herds and AI alongside cooperative online play. If it takes the form of a tentpole title for the Xbox brand, I am not so sure, but it will be used as a taste of just what Lockhart and Anaconda will bring to the table, with visual and audio splendour in conjunction with cross-platform play. And this segue is perfect to what I think will be a big part of the show: hardware and delivery methods of games. Way back in 2014, I made a video describing Microsoft plans and aims with platform agnotism, direct hardware control, and even third-party collaborations. And I'm sure this will continue into this generation and beyond, but one of its obvious steps forward is having multiple platform or SKUs, which it really started the Xbox 360 with. Here, those two SKUs will cover the Lockhart and the Anaconda, with the Anaconda having the longest tail, hence the name, and being more powerful, with the Lockhart being the weaker of the two. But this is partially based on rumour at this point, but it does seem quite concrete, I would say, with a $250 or around £250 price tag slapped on top. Brexit will have its revenge in terms of pricing, I'm sure, over the next 3 or 4 years. This will be an 8-core CPU, a rumoured 4 teraflop GPU, 12GB of RAM, and a 1TB SSD. And it will include the AMD Navi DirectX ray tracing hardware support that we already know is evident in the PS5. But the higher end $499, £500 Anaconda model will have a 12 teraflop GPU and around 16GB of RAM, with again 1TB SSD or maybe even more, and DirectX ray tracing support. Now, this is obviously has an issue when you compare this to the Xbox One X. You think, well, hang on a minute, it's a weaker GPU, but it's not always the same thing. Now, I do believe that the Lockhart is designed around the cheaper price tag, that entry-level model, to replace both the Xbox One and the Xbox One X, or S, as I'm sure Microsoft want to move as far away from that machine as possible. And it has had a good lifespan. 6 years later, it's still going strong. Well, it's still going. That machine itself even though it's got a 4 teraflop GPU, if you push everything to around 1080p or 1440p, it will still be pretty powerful in terms of performance, and it will still put it above, pretty much close to what's possible on the PS4 Pro. That makes it a very good entry-level machine, and that 8-core Zen 2 CPU will mean it will have a significant amount of power to run a much better library of titles. Now remember, the main point of this, and like I say, referring back to my old video, this is all about Microsoft moving to platform agnostic solutions. Windows 10 is all about their single solution. Write once, deploy many. It's not Java. No, this is the solution to game development. You do not want to keep having a position where developers have to tailor-make and tweak, optimize, basically improve their individual code for the game itself to run on in separate hardware platforms. You want to have a single solution. Just write and deploy. That is always the best method. And that's what we will see here with the Xbox library of titles. It will run on the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, the Xbox One X, the Lockhart, the Anaconda, and PC. And you can absolutely guarantee that every single one of those will include the back catalogue library of all of the current backwards compatibility titles from both Xbox One, Xbox 360, and of course the Xbox One itself. That will run seamlessly and probably even better than they do on the X. That Zen CPU and SSD in the Lockhart means the lower entry of machines will have a longer lifespan, and they can gently move away from the limited Jaguar cores. Now, the biggest leverage here is that single API and operating system layer that they've been working on to develop and improve the developer's experience by writing once and not worrying about what they're developing for. Coding to the metal, as is bandied around all the time, is not really, it doesn't mean anything, to be fair. If I'm being brutally honest, people say this without understanding the concept. You do not code to the metal. Those days are long gone. They do not exist. It does not happen. What you have is better levels of API driver support that allow you access to the hardware and give you the ability to maximize that hardware if it has hardware available to it, such as the EQAA in the current gen consoles, and obviously the forthcoming ray tracing hardware, which we've already seen in the Nvidia cards on my RTX card review, which I've covered previously, and the Quake 2 update, and obviously what we're going to see on both of these consoles. AMD are well aware, I did say this quite a while ago to some people over on the Reset Era and NeoGAF forums that told me I was talking out of my arse end. Well, as you can see already, the only donkey here was not the one talking at the moment. But all that doesn't mean anything. It's quite obvious, and this also comes down to the additional bonus and, I believe, the main function of Lockhart. Not only is it designed to wipe away the history of the Xbox brand, but also give a lower form of entry that allows you better quality games, probably than even what you're getting on the X. Arguably, the GPU is obviously weaker, if rumours are to be believed, but the CPU, the operating system, and the RAM is possibly going to be better overall. So there's not going to be much in it. You can't get hung up on teraflops alone. But no, the main feature of the Lockhart is it will be a core entry into the Project X cloud, which Microsoft are pushing forward first and foremost. This format will be all about them delivering the best quality hardware and games they can on streaming platforms, which will include everything possible from phones to PCs. Now, I've seen many channels talk about the hardware, and even Microsoft themselves in their marketing campaigns, about the fact they took an Xbox One S and they stuck it in a blade tower and stuck it in a rack, and therefore their data centers are completely built up of console motherboards. Obviously, this is crap. Anyone who works in this environment, which I do for the past years, knows that that is absolute crap. That isn't what's been done at all. These are data centers. That wouldn't functionally work if you didn't have the ability to scale, have QoS, have the options to repair, replace, and expand that ability across the board in terms of your data center infrastructure. And this will mean that everything running on these machines is all designed around the API layer that I've just mentioned. You can replace hardware, you can put in new servers, new blades, you can expand, enhance. That is the point of what Microsoft have built. They're then not going to lock that down to 3 or 4 year old hardware and stick it in a blade racks. That's not how these things work. What they are doing is they are running it just like any other VM. Again, Go back to my 2014 video where I talk about this in more depth. But essentially, this is about the functionality of giving you the emulated state of any hardware you want and allowing hardware to be expanded and enhanced dynamically on the fly. Essentially QoS I've just mentioned. So when demand becomes high, you then ramp up the ability from multiple servers to deliver that source out to the customers. And this is what Microsoft's Azure Cloud, that's how we say it in the UK. I know everyone's going to get mad at me about that, but I've been working with this for quite a while. That's the point of it. They're not going to replace their functionality. They're using their current data center infrastructure to expand this into the gaming market. And Lockhart is their entry-level platform to give you the best quality available. Now, there are many other options you can do to improve this, not only in terms of the streaming media content and compression methods, which make better quality on the fly, but also by having a more powerful console where the user is themselves. It means you can mix and match this between what's being rendered from the remote server and what is actually being rendered locally. 4 teraflops, a decent CPU, quite a large amount of RAM, means that you could have the option to stream 4K games with much better quality textures and other effects that are coming from the video files, and then merge those two together. And I believe this is what we will see with the Xbox Lockhart, a much better leap forward in what is possible rather than just streaming direct video. You basically mix the two between rendered on the machine and rendered remotely in the cloud. I do hate saying cloud, but there you go. It's the easiest way to describe it, and that's what I believe the Lockhart's for. I believe the Anaconda is the exact opposite of that. A full-on 12 teraflop next generation machine that will push towards 4K, 8K, 120 Hz and all the other goodness that we've already seen from the PS5, and that will include that very same ray tracing hardware functionality. I do believe that this will be the time that Microsoft will spend to talk about these two platforms specifically and just how their portfolio in terms of the Xbox brand will develop moving forward, and they will spend a good portion of that time talking about Project xCloud. Google have made their big steps forward with Stadia, and even though many are writing this off, do not write off a company this big. As we already know with Netflix, streaming functionality, although not the same, is very easy to deliver, and it's getting much easier with all the data centers across the world. That means that we are going to see more and more teams joining forces and making this a much easier process, and Game Pass is a good sign behind what they are aiming for. To deliver you functionality by buying games, renting games, or just paying a monthly fee means that all those games that usually get lost in the crowd can actually make some money from a repetitive payment. And this is really why you're seeing Netflix deliver such original content, and other platforms such as Amazon and Sky, in terms of delivering films and TV shows that wouldn't be made outside of this perpetual subscription, which is unfortunately what the world is going for. An all digital future is really not for me, but I know that I am not the future, so it will happen whether I, you, or anybody else likes it. It is going to be the step forward, and everyone is preparing for it. And I believe Microsoft is playing this well by having core hardware that covers both the bottom end and the top end, alongside a streaming option for everyone else who doesn't want to get wrapped up in buying hardware. There will be many more games to come on this show, including the just released Jedi Last Order trailer, which I've already seen people moaning and complaining about, but this is essentially Star Wars 1313 that really kicked off the generation before it started, back when Watch Dogs was also released. And here we are at the end of the generation, seeing that game being delivered finally in a game, and it's 60 FPS. Now, this is a move away from Frostbite using Unreal Engine 4, and Respawn have kept true to their mantra of making sure that performance is higher than just using visual quality. But if you're one of those people saying this game looks bad, then you clearly need your eyes testing, because this looks anything but bad. Yes, this is not up to the usual standard of multiplayer focused and hyperbolic games that need to be launched nowadays with everything going on for some political agenda. No, this is a Star Wars game through and through, and it looks good. It looks like it plays good. It's got a progression system and hopefully a very good combat system. Now, if all of those things come true and it's a little tougher than what we see here, then I for one will be buying this day one and hopefully securing myself a review copy as well. And again, it just adds even more value to another subscription service in EA Access. Now, moving off of Microsoft, and which will be the centre of the whole world, there will not be a Sony presence there, but I'm not doubting they will not have a presence during E3 week. They won't be stealing any thunder today with a Microsoft show, but I'm sure we will hear and see more of their hardware and their games moving forward. We've just covered what was already been announced for the Xbox and what's possible there, and I've already done a video a few weeks ago now on what the PS5 is, what I expected it to be, and how close those actual expectations were, so you can check that out if you want to know more. But I'm sure that Sony will come showing off some of the delights that the PS5 can deliver as we close out that PS4 chapter. Again, streaming will be a big part of what they're doing, and they are ramping that up in many ways, including some partnerships with Microsoft. This doesn't mean that Microsoft and Sony are hand in hand now partners. This is just a standard process. Microsoft have the infrastructure and Sony, and this means they need to make sure they can spread their platform across the world, and this means having servers closer to target, i.e. you and me. So this will be their main aim, and I'm sure they will cover some area of their push forward into the PS5 and that streaming platform. And we may even see 2 SKUs from those as well, pushing away from the PS4 Pro and bringing in a lower entry that's around that level, but again with that Zen CPU, the SSD, so it has a longer lifespan and still covers those PS4 delights. They're not going to drop over 100 million players so quickly, so do not expect the PS4's back compatibility process to die out quite as quick as I think Microsoft will drop the Xbox One and the S. I do suspect we will see some new games, maybe some hints of new stuff coming up for PS5, and that will certainly include a ray tracing demo from the guys and girls over at Polyphony Digital, because that's a known entity and it's already been shown publicly anyway. There will be other titles, and I'm sure Naughty Dog may get wheeled out to show some more The Last of Us. We'll definitely see more of Death Stranding, which is now going to launch this year, and I have much more to come over the next week of E3 delights and all the games and treats that were coming out, so please stay tuned for more analysis and information about that, more hardware analysis once we hear more from the Xbox team and certainly the PlayStation team. And then finally, there's Nintendo, which obviously never attend and never show up anyway, and there is the issue of the updated Switch or the Switch enhancements. This is standard, but again, keep your expectations in check. Nintendo do not add huge amounts of increases to leapfrog the generation. They work in their own bubble. They do not follow the trend. They never have, they never will. So suspect the Switch Pro, if something is announced, to not really be a Pro of sorts, but more of a refinement and an improvement to it, as we saw with other consoles such as the Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance, the DS, the 3XL, and all those other additions that have happened across the lifespan of Nintendo. The Switch is selling great guns, it's doing a great job, and it's got arguably the best third-party support it's ever had, so they're not likely to alienate all of that base so far, where it's selling better than other consoles at the moment in certain territories. And I think the firmware updates point to the fact that they are trying to make sure that it can hang with the increments we will see in the new hardware generation. So the final question is E3 coming to an end? Well, I think it is. This is the end of the generation. We will most certainly have the new generation next year. We will be seeing delights of it this year, that's for sure, possibly even later today. And I think that Sony are playing their cards well in terms of seeing if they can get away with wasting all that money on E3 and spending it elsewhere in internal processes, R&D, or anything else you want to. Why spend all that money putting together a show like they did last year, which was ultimately a failure because everyone complained about it and it was awkward, than just going to the show and doing things your own way like Nintendo Direct and saving all that money? Microsoft are a very different beast. They have no money problems, they do not have issues writing expenses and checks and basically going all out to capitalize on huge multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns. E3 is just one of many. Sony are not in that position. They're doing well, but they do not have the capital and the investment that Microsoft have. So this, I believe, may be the beginnings of the end of E3. I do think we will not see it continue in the form we have been accustomed to. We will likely see a focused week of media attention on announcing new platforms, new hardware, new games and new studios, but maybe not in such a flamboyant method out in Las Vegas. Anyway, be sure to check back this week and the next week and beyond for all of the games and analysis I'll be covering, for all the things we know about and don't know about yet that come out of E3. Hopefully you guys and girls enjoyed this. If you did, please like, subscribe and share where appropriate. But for now, I'm out, and I'll be looking forward to some more information later today once Microsoft kick off proceedings. I'll catch you on the next one.
And when we have it just right, we're going to scale it out in an epic way and deliver it to the world.